David, can you hear me?
I can hear you very well.
Perfect. So I would like to remind everyone what Pride in the Living Room is all about. So this project was founded by Israeli LGBT task force Agudah in memory of the 2009 Tel Aviv Gay Center shooting and the Jerusalem Pride Parade stabbing in 2015. And the purpose of this project is to reach out to LGBT Jews from around the world to share their stories, to encourage empathy and community. And with all of that said, it is my honor to introduce David to the stage to share his incredible story. And without further ado, David, the stage is yours.
Oh my goodness. Well, hi. Hi to everyone. You'll have to forgive me. I am schwitzing like you wouldn't believe. I'm in my home where there's no air conditioner. So, hi. Hi. So, Jared, you want me to tell my story of life and being a fabulous gay man? Am I correct?
Of course, yes. Walk us through your Jewish experience, your gay experience, how they've intersected, the amazing work that you've done in organizations.
Okay. Well, it all started February 22nd, 1984, when David Fair was born to Marsha Goldman, a short Long Island Jewish white lady, and Warren Fair, a 6'4" skinny black Christian Catholic guy from Baltimore City. I was born in Baltimore City, Maryland, and I grew up in Baltimore. And uh, what people always seem to think is so strange, but I mean, of course, it's the most normal thing in the world to me, was that, yeah, my father was not Jewish, but I was brought up completely Jewish. In fact, we were staples at our synagogue. We used to, well, my mom would take me and my two little brothers to shul all the time, and we loved going to shul. And it's probably because we lived in an area where there were no Jews. We grew up in the black part of Baltimore, and unlike Brooklyn now, where we have many Jews of color, that was certainly not the case in Baltimore in the 80s and 90s. And we loved going. I loved all the music. I loved learning Hebrew. I thought being Jewish was amazing and fun and made us really special. My mom just like really filled us with this pride of being Jewish and how that made us special. Um, and I remember thinking, and I said to my mom one day, talking about my father's mom, I was saying, so Grandma Rose, is she just nothing? Because to me, there was no other religion than being Jewish. I felt so sorry for people that weren't Jewish because, we got awesome, fun things like Passover and Hanukkah and Sukkot and Tu B'Shvat and all the fun, wonderful things and shofars. And I grew up a really happy kid. My dad would drive us to Hebrew school 3 days a week, but he didn't have any role in the Judaism. He was just our dad and functioned in that way. And so I was in the choir in religious school, and that is really where big things started to happen. The music program in my religious school, and then any opportunity I was given to lead anything in services led to what would be my true calling later in life, which I'll get to soon. Um, let's see. So, I grew up this like skinny, black, Jewish, gay kid in Baltimore, um, in the black part of town. So um, it wasn't the easiest middle school experience. I got beat up more times than I wish to say. And, nobody was really into me tap dancing down the hallway singing Debbie Friedman songs. I remember my mom, I asked my mom if I could do ballet and tap classes, and she said, yes, but we can't tell your father. And I definitely did do ballet and tap, and we didn't tell my dad. And but it was fabulous. I had a great bar mitzvah. I went to the Performing Arts High School in Baltimore County, and I majored in, well, we had majors there. It was a special high school. Majored in theater. Did not major in singing. However, I ended up going to the University of Maryland, College Park, as a music major. And my instrument was voice. And oh, I can't even tell you how obsessed I was with opera. I just loved it. And to this day, I love it. And it is my heart and soul. And I loved opera. And um, at the same time, I was living this life as a budding opera singer. I was also loving still being Jewish, except after the bar mitzvah, after confirmation, I did what most Jewish kids do. I call it we fall off of the face of the Jewish earth. And, it just like being in conservative Judaism just was not as appealing as Barbara Streisand and Ethel Merman and being a fabulous person, at least not in my personal experience. But I actually found my way back to Judaism through the conservative movement. My friend Stefan, in my sophomore year of college, he had extra money set in his food account for getting meals at the Hillel, the Center for Jewish Life, where they have kosher meals. And he said, David, I've got this extra money in the account. If I don't use it by the end of the semester, it's just going to go away. Can I just treat you to this? They would just be so stupid to waste it. And food in our food hall was kind of crap. So it was like, sure, why not? And before I knew it, I was going to Hillel and meeting all these awesome, cool, sweet people that really wanted to get to know me well. And before I knew it, I was going to services and I was getting involved. And I started teaching religious school at the nearest synagogue in Bowie, Maryland. And I really loved teaching in religious school. I loved teaching Bible. I loved it. I still would love it. And okay, I'm trying to tell many stories at the same time. Jewish, Black, gay. I guess, okay, the gay part. So I'm one of the only people I know who I didn't actually know I was gay. I was having all of these fantasies about my male classmates when I was in middle school, and I just kept that to myself. And I, of course, knew my stern father would never, ever approve or even tolerate such a thing. And my mother grew up a very right-wing conservative Jew. So there was no way that could have ever been acceptable in my life. And I remember the summer right before I entered as a freshman into college. I was working as a waiter at a little restaurant called Bennigan's in Baltimore. And the guys that I worked with, the other waiters, were giving me sort of a hard time. They were poking fun, not like making fun of me because I was gay. They wanted me to say I was gay. I truly don't believe there was any homophobia, but they wanted me to come out to them. And they would say things like, are you gay? And I would say, it's none of your business. And I remember I went home one day and I was sitting on my blue chair, and I remember thinking to myself, maybe I'm bi. Maybe, I don't know. And then that was maybe in August, September is when school starts. I remember we were taking a class where we had to read the book The Laramie Project. And we were reading about Matthew Shepard and how he was murdered in Laramie, Wyoming. And we were discussing this book in class, and whatever we were discussing, I got super uncomfortable, and I went to the bathroom, and I never came back that class. I remember coming back hours and hours later to retrieve my backpack, and I bumped into my friend Brittany, who was in the class, and she said, "David, what happened to you?" And I said, "Oh, I guess I was uncomfortable because, I mean, I'm gay, and it just was uncomfortable." And that was the first time I ever uttered those words. And everything in my life got better. Everything. I started making friends more easily. And I don't mean making gay friends. I mean just making friends easily, because people want to be friends with people who like themselves. People want to be friends with people who feel free to be themselves. People are drawn to other people who radiate humanity and self-love. And I remember sophomore year was amazing. And when I got to Hillel, I felt perfectly free to say I was gay. And all right, I'm trying to also think about the black thing. I can't say that played a huge role. I mean, it played a role in the sense of, like, I remember being in middle school and, like, I didn't know who to be friends with. Am I friends with the white kids who are into skateboarding and wearing Vans and Airwalks and listening to Bush and Metallica? Or do I be friends with the black kids who wear the FUBU jeans and the Timberlands and the oversized clothing and love rap? And I'm not into any of those forms of music that I just named. I mean, I was into Gypsy and Oklahoma, and so that was challenging in its own way. I can't say I had a lot of friends growing up. My next door neighbor, Peter, was Filipino, and that felt safe. I can't say I had no friends, but I certainly wasn't free to be myself. And any child of mixed race will tell you that, especially when I don't exactly look like any race. Like Barack Obama looks like a black guy, and I definitely don't look like I've got two black parents, but I don't quite look like I've got two white parents. My mom used to say, see, me and my brothers, we're all different colors. We have the same parents, but we're different colors. She used to say that Jason looks like a light-skinned black person, Justin looks like a dark-skinned Jewish kid, and you look like a latte. And I like that because I like lattes. But anyhow, okay. I was a music major. I was probably a sophomore, and at this point, like, all of the saxophone majors were playing in jazz clubs, and all of the clarinetists were playing in those kind of environments where and every instrument could get a gig. And if you were a singer, you usually you sang in a church. But my mother was like dead set against me singing in a church. She was very focused on, you can't step foot in a church. You'll catch on fire. And the only time I had been in churches was to go to family funerals and weddings on my dad's side. So I found a job singing in the quartet of a Reform synagogue, a local quartet. And you see, Jared, you being Australian, you're probably not quite privy to the dynamics of American Judaism. But I will say that if you're a conservative Jewish person, at least who grew up in the 80s and 90s, then you were sort of taught that the Reform people, which I think you all might call liberal Judaism, I'm not too sure. We were taught that, like, those Reform people, they're like heathens. They play instruments on Shabbat. They don't wear a tallis in the morning. They eat work. And so when I got this job, I thought, well, I'm not going to let these reform people taint my superior views. Now, mind you, I hadn't been inside of a synagogue in 2 years, but I thought I knew Judaism. I knew how to do it well. The right way to do Judaism is the way that they do Judaism in the synagogue I don't go to. But anyhow, it really just took maybe once of singing this heavenly music. There was piano and organ, and there was, I was a music major. So, I was used to Yismechu Hashamayim, Hashamayim. That sort of Hasidic nature of music, it's generally all in minor and it's in 4/4. That stuff, no wonder that didn't fill my soul. And all of a sudden, I'm singing music written by incredible composers like Max Janowski, Isidore Fried, Lazar Weiner, Debbie Friedman, Julie Silver, Hannah Tefereth Siegel, Jeff Klepper. I'm singing glorious music that's orchestrated, that has through composed accompaniment, that is challenging and hard. Every now and then there'd be a piece that would be, there's not a lot of atonal Jewish music, but I've sung a little bit of it. And it's so awesome and so fun. And it's modern stuff. And some stuff is nearly ancient and it's incredible. Like Salamone Rossi wrote like Baroque 17th century Jewish music. It's insane. And it just filled my soul. And all of a sudden, whereas in the conservative movement at that time, gay weddings were not permitted, and there was no gay clergy permitted. In the reform movement, they were all about the gays. And I mean, I was one of like a dozen gay people sitting in that service, if not more. And women had women have been rabbis in the reform movement since like the 70s. And I was just like, these are my people. It would be a long while before I would ever see a person of color in a synagogue, but I just loved it. And before I knew it, I wanted to become a cantor. And I would love to tell you that by the end of college, I enrolled at Hebrew Union College, Jewish Institute of Religion, but I didn't apply for another 10 years. I wanted to be everything in the world. I went to Pittsburgh and I was a preschool teacher for 3 years. I went to the Cleveland Institute of Music and I got 2 diplomas in singing opera, and that was an incredible experience. While I was in Pittsburgh, I was singing as the cantorial soloist at a synagogue called Rodef Shalom, and concurrently with a temple, I think it was called B'nai Israel, and I was learning the skills of singing Jewish music, and I was loving that to an extent. I was a little too immature to be a real cantor. I was very obsessed with, well, this prayer is not in the key that my voice blooms in. What do you mean I have to sing low? I have to sing in a key that the congregants can sing in. That's ridiculous. Don't they want to hear me at my most beautiful range? I had a lot to learn. I had a huge ego. I'm not without ego now, but I would like to think that it's in the right place. I honestly think all clergy must have a bit of ego to do the job. Nobody wants a wallflower up there preaching at you. And okay, so where am I here in my story? When I got to Cleveland, I started working at Hillel as the Shabbat services coordinator, a very part-time job, and I was teaching a lot of religious schools. So what I'm getting at here is, while I was becoming an opera singer, I was always involved in the Jewish world in some way. And something happened the year after I graduated from the Cleveland Institute of Music. I think I was 30 years old. I'm 36, by the way. So I was living in Chicago. I was singing the leading roles in good operas. Um, and I just sort of had this coming to God moment where I just realized, David, who are you trying to impress right now? I'm singing these roles that there might be 3 or 4 tenor roles in the world of opera that are incredibly fulfilling and meaningful and wonderful, like Alfredo and Debreu and maybe Hoffman. But everything else, these roles, they can be rather silly. Ferrando and Così fan tutte is like a vapid, self-absorbed character, and the leading tenor is that in most operas. He's like trying to comfort his girlfriend whose dad just died, but he doesn't have a spine. That's Don Giovanni, and I just, it wasn't fulfilling me spiritually. But by this point, I had sung maybe for 7 years in synagogues, and I had led about 7 high holidays. And whereas when I would audition for operas, I kept feeling like there were these doors that were being shut in my face. I went to New York to audition and I didn't get any jobs. And it was just such a struggle. The opera world it, everything was hard. It was like the wind is blowing at me and I am trying to fight the wind. Whenever I walked into a Jewish space, doors would open. People would say, come on in. The wind would blow me in. And I felt so loved in Jewish spaces. But that's not to say every single Jewish space. I worked at a summer camp that I wasn't a good fit for. I worked at a synagogue where they didn't really want a big voiced person with my personality. They wanted more of a song leader, somebody who used that guitar back there and would just, sing loudly. And that's not quite me either. But after a bunch of rabbis really nudging me, and I just realized, David, you need to be a cantor. And I mean, when you're singing Kol Nidre, and you see people are having actual religious experiences. They're crying, they're coming up to me afterward, they're telling me, David, you brought me back to when I would go to shul with my grandfather. They have these stories that are so touching and meaningful. And the thing is, I think I was always meant to be a cantor. I think I just took the scenic route to get there. And I applied to Hebrew Union College, Jewish Institute of Religion in New York City. And I went, and that was 2016. And we do 1 year in Israel, and then we do 4 years in New York. And I'm about to start the 5th year. And I'm leaving sort of the gay story out. Well, I mean, being gay has been a whole journey. Now I'm at a point where I have pretty nail polish, and I wear green shorts, and some days I feel like that, and some days I'm not so into that. It's too much to say in a short period. Being gay and accepting oneself as gay is, I hate to say it because it shouldn't be this. It's a lifelong process. I mean, who says that about being straight, for God's sakes? But I've had a bunch of boyfriends, and now I have a beautiful, wonderful partner that I hope to be with for the rest of my life. And his name is Corey, and I love him very much. And I just finished working my year-long internship at the world's largest LGBT synagogue, which is called CBST, Congregation Beit Simchat Torah. And I'm a pretty fabulous gay man. What can I say? Now, what actually consumes my life is being a black man, because it started off with, I would just notice racism, and I would start, you know, I had a 2-year internship where the rabbi allowed me to give the sermon about um, twice a month, and I would start preaching about things that I would notice, sometimes in the synagogue and sometimes outside of the synagogue, about police brutality, about things like, um, you know, things as, there was one time when in Philadelphia, and I worked in York, PA, so Philadelphia, PA is not that far away. There were these black men who were sitting in Starbucks having a business meeting, and they were arrested because the owner said something like, "Oh yeah, they hadn't bought a drink." And they were sitting there, and it turned out they were waiting for their business partner to arrive before they all bought drinks. So, and nobody would have arrested a white person who had done that. And this past year, we've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of murders of unarmed black men by cops in the United States. And this past year, when George Floyd was murdered, George Floyd, I think he was sitting in his car and the police pulled him out and stepped on his neck. I think they accused him of forging checks, something ridiculous like that. And he was killed right then and there. And we've had many more murders. So now I gave 2 sermons this past year at CBST, and now synagogues have been hiring me to speak, and I'm about to do one on Sunday. I give a whole hour program where I talk about my story of life, and I talk about how white Jewish people can all be anti-racism educators. And I start off by saying how I have personally contributed to racism. And I say things like, everyone, I have called up the Chinese food restaurant and been irritated because I can't understand what the person is saying. And then I get irritated with them. And then I go home and I complain to my partner about it. And I would go through a whole list of things that I do that contribute to racism. And what I say is, everybody, if I can admit that I do these things that contribute to racism, you can admit that. And if we can admit it, then we can then decide we're going to stop doing it. And I give these speeches and I talk about systemic racism. I could go on and on. I'm going to try to stop myself. But I could definitely give a long lecture about systemic racism and how people contribute to it very inadvertently. And I feel like every white person does.
May I be able to ask you a few questions?
Please.
So first of all, I just want to say, it is really wonderful to hear you talk about your gay identity, your black identity, your Jewish identity, hearing the way that these intersect with each other, and also the ways that they have sometimes butted against each other throughout your experience. And I think that to anyone who is watching this video, that they will be able to take something very meaningful away. I think one of the phrases you said to me that really stood out to me is, people want to be friends with people who like themselves. And I think that really resonates with each of the identities that you've spoken about today. And can you talk a little bit about liking yourself? So what are some of the things that you really like about yourself and how that lives through your identities?
Well, I just think when we take an inventory of who we are and we accept the truth of who we are, and we surround ourselves with people who support us and who lift us up, we walk the world in a way where people are drawn to us. Now, I have a lot of minority identities, and I've had to contend with that. You know, I call myself Black now, and I haven't always done that. I've said I'm a person of color. I've said I'm half Black, half white, and now I say I'm Black. Um, that was me coming to terms with who I am, but not just who I am, it's who I want to be known as, and being honest with my life experience. Um, Being gay, it, it, I would be uncomfortable going to an Orthodox synagogue because I would feel that I would need to prove that I'm Jewish enough and I can be gay and Jewish. And I don't put myself in that environment. And I think that's a lot of this concept of liking yourself. You or one should get themselves out of environments where they are not loved and accepted for who they are. Just leave. Fire your friends from your life who are not lifting you up. Um, and I live in New York City now, where there's a lot of Jews. So I'm tripping over Jews on the sidewalk. But it would be very difficult for me to love being Jewish if I lived around no Jews. That's not to say that people who don't live around Jews can't love themselves and be happy with themselves. But I work very hard, and I've worked really, really hard to put myself in an environment where I can thrive. So that's sort of my advice to people. Put yourself in an environment where you can thrive and get yourself out of environments that darken and slow your vibrations.
That's such beautiful advice. Thank you very much, David, for sharing that. I wanted to ask as well, so you've spoken about music being such a core part of your life, whether it's loving the Broadway tunes growing up, whether it's your opera career. You pronounced many names of operas in Italian that I couldn't possibly hope to imitate. Um, and your work within Jewish organizations as a chazan, a cantor, um, in other uh, uh, educational um, roles as well. So can you talk a little bit about what music means to you, um, spiritually or in a meaningful context, and how it has carried you all these years?
When I find, and especially during the time of COVID, when I am dealing with some depression, and I've never in my life dealt with depression, and now I am fighting it hardcore, especially now, when I find myself depressed for days on end, what I sort of realize is happening is that I haven't been singing enough. And for me, it just feels so good to sing. I love the vibrations going through my body. I will schedule a voice lesson and I will sing some song from years ago that I find challenging just to sing. And I think singing brings the world together. In Judaism, we have something called a nigun, or in Ashkenazi Yiddish circles, we say a niggin. And, that's a wordless song. And, I find that that's the best way to start off a Friday night service, singing yada da 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 yada da 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 yada da 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 yada da da. And before you know it, people are catching the tune and we're singing. We're having a good time. And at the end of a really good lechadodi where we're off and where, and everybody together is going, ay, 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 lecha dodi, ay, 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 likrat kalma, and we're having a party. I think music brings people together. Music is what makes us dance. And for me, it's always been singing. It's been this through line throughout my life that just keeps me so happy. And I think God gave me this gift, but I also don't believe you need to have a beautiful voice or know how to sing well in order to sing or to lead people in singing. You need to have ruach. You need to have spirit. You need to have neshama. You just need to enjoy what you're doing. And I really think music unites all human beings on the planet.
So well said. And I have had the opportunity to hear some of your cantering over Zoom services. It's the same as hearing you live face to face, but hearing the way that people can connect to each other, to themselves, to a higher power through music, through your music. I think that's a really powerful tool that you have.
Thank
Um,
you.
I wanted to ask. So, can you give us a little bit of hope to all of us single gay people and LGBT people in the world, and just give us a little taste of how cute your relationship is with Corey?
So can I give you hope and give you a taste of my cute relationship?
How did you meet? What's
Oh,
how does it
oh
all?
my
Yeah.
God. This is my favorite story. Corey and I met in the real world. I mean, the irony is that I had been online dating for probably a decade, and then I ended up meeting somebody in the real world that, God willing, will be together forever. Um, Corey went on a few dates with this guy named Ray when he lived in Arizona. And after a few dates, they realized they weren't great romantic people, but they were wonderful friends. And they had this friendship that lasted a couple of years. And Ray married my friend Wes, who I met here in New York. And Ray and Wes were having a going away party, and um, Ray invited his good friend Corey, and Wes invited his good friend David, and it was a going away party picnic, and I saw Corey standing with a few other gay men. And I just walked right up to Corey. Well, I think I walked up to the circle and I was like, "Hey guys," but I really come over there to talk to Corey. He's so cute. And I just was like, "Hi, I'm David. What is your name?" And he said, "Oh, I'm Corey." And I said, "Okay, I need to know everything about you. What's your whole story? Where are you from? Why are you here in New York?" Oh, I was just very aggressive. I tend to be that way in my dating life. I just, I mean, people like it when you take an interest in them. And I just interrogated him, and I stood probably closer to a person than one would socially feel is acceptable. Yes, like that. I just thought he was so cute. He had a mustache, and he had this cute little outfit. Anyway, and he said that, "Well, David, I don't live here. I'm only in New York for a month. I am going, I'm seeing if I like New York. I live in Chicago. I'm in a sublet situation for a month." And I said, "Oh, well, you need a tour guide." And he said, "You're right. I've been here for 2 days. I need a tour guide." And I took him on a very quality date. The next day, I make things happen. I took him on a ferry. We went to uh, Dumbo Park. I, 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 you would have to know Brooklyn to understand this area of Brooklyn Bridge Park, but it was romantic. And we had Ethiopian food that evening at an Ethiopian restaurant. And I saw him every day. I just couldn't not. And unfortunately, 5 days later, I was leading a birthright group. I was going to Israel to lead a birthright group. And I left for Israel, but I talked to Corey every day. And when I got back, it was back on. And that was last June. And, there have been bumps along the road here and there. But I'm happy to say now we live together. It was really brought on by COVID. I wouldn't have lived with someone this quickly, but because of the pandemic, it was either, we had to make a choice. So we moved in together, and but since I have a vehicle, I just want to tell you all this thing about dating. You will find the right person when God has decided that you have found the right person. I mean, I'm very grateful for all of my exes and the people that I've met who were along my journey, but I was always supposed to meet Corey, and it didn't matter if I went out to the club or the bar that night, or if I didn't go out to the bar, did I miss the man of my dreams? No, because the man of your dreams will find you eventually. And I feel like God decides when we're going to meet the people that we're supposed to meet, when we are ready and when they are ready. I couldn't have met Corey before then because we weren't ready for each other. And but it goes back to what I was saying in the very beginning of this conversation. You have to be yourself. You have to love yourself. You have to show the embarrassing parts of yourself. I'm trying to get back to myself. I don't feel like I was the same person a year ago that I am now because COVID has turned me into a depressed monster of sadness and moroseness every day. So I'm trying to find that David again. There's my silly answer.
As single Jared, it's so heartwarming to hear your beautiful story of how you met Corey and how you're able to strengthen each other and support each other. And it sounds really beautiful to hear. So thank you very much for sharing.
Welcome.
I have one final question, if that's okay. So at the very beginning of your story, you spoke about Stefan. Did I pronounce his name correctly?
And right, yeah.
You spoke about Stefan, who reintroduced you to Judaism through the Hillel food program. And you really spoke about this moment as if it was a significant change point in your life, and it directed the course of your life at that point, whereas it could have gone into a completely different direction. So I just wanted to ask, um, have you spoken with Stefan about what that moment has meant to you? And if not, what would you say to him if you had the opportunity?
I have never told him that. You're making me want to reach out. I haven't talked to him in a couple of years, so I should totally reach out. COVID's the time of reaching out to people from our past. I did tell Brittany many years later that she was the first person I told I was gay to. I told her that maybe 5 years ago or something. But gosh, I would remind Stefan of the story and how when you just offhandedly asked me to come to Hillel and I met those really sweet people and they made me feel welcomed and at home, I thought, oh, well, this is a Jewish space I'd like to go to again. And maybe I could fit in with Jews. And then they invited me to come to services. And the thing was, I was not into conservative services, but I liked going because I was with my friends. I turned into a reform baby after a while, but I'm about to give this talk on Sunday where I'm about to tell all of these white Jewish people, when you see a black person walking to your synagogue, walk up to them, say, hi, I'm Bill. What's your name? Welcome. What brings you here today? Can I give you a tour? Can I introduce you to the rabbi? Make them feel welcome. Make them feel like you are interested in them. Ask them, oh, what part of town do you live in? So that was done for me. And then I re-entered Judaism, and it just takes a friendly face to change the course of someone's life.
Yeah, I think that's really the through line of your story. You've been guided and you've been reached out to by significant people on your journey, and to me, it looks like you're taking the opportunity to pay it forward and to reach out and to help guide the next group of struggling people um, through all the aspects of your identity. And would you say that that's accurate?
I mean, I have trouble accepting such kind words of my character, but when I do become an ordained cantor, and when I start working full time, and I have a hundred mitzvah students a year, maybe even 200, it can be a lot. I certainly hope that they can see this black Jewish, well, they know I'm Jewish, this black gay person in authority. And I'm thinking especially for the little gay kids. Like, I just hope they can take one look at me and see that I really like myself. And I'm not hiding anything. In fact, I'm shouting it from the rooftops. And I very much hope that there could be black, or at least people of color who hear, wait, I heard they have a cantor who's black. Oh, well, maybe we should check that out. So I hope I can just let people know the things I've learned and just pass on my experience. I'm no guru, but I do have a story to tell, and I can hopefully stop other people from making the mistakes that I've made and maybe doing some of the things that I was never able to do at such a young age.
Thank you so much, David, for taking time out of your evening to be part of the Pride in the Living Room project. Uh, do you have any final parting words?
Um, oh, this should be something profound, shouldn't it be? My final words are this. A lot of people think that tomatoes are vegetables, but they're actually fruits. And there you go.
I think that's a beautiful metaphor. Sometimes things aren't what they appear on the outside, and you have to delve into it a little bit deeper. That's so beautiful.
You got that abstract meaning I was definitely trying to give.
It's
But
the
I needed
story
to give.
behind the story.
There you go.
So yeah, thank you for teaching us about vegetables and fruit, and for spending this time with us. Here's to sharing our story in this moment and many more moments in the future. להתראות.
להתראות.